And there was this small little voice inside of me that was saying, well, maybe you need to change on the inside before you change everything on the outside. But I couldn't fathom what could be strong enough to help me in the way that I needed help. I was desperate for change and didn't know how it could happen.
Welcome to the Healing Cocoon. I'm Jacoby Gray, soul alignment and success coach and energy healer, which means I can intuit the subtle layers of your energy field to promote ultimate health and well-being. My goal for this podcast is to shed light on the healing journey itself and help you feel more supported as you embark on the process of unpacking your past to consciously create your present and start living the life of your dreams. Through the study of coaching, kinesiology, holographic kinetics, meditation, Reiki, the chakra system, and many other modalities, I've learned how to release the blocks that were holding me back. Now I'd love to help you do the same. By embarking on your own self-healing process, you'll see the world transforming around you in ways you never thought possible. You'll begin to experience more connection, clarity, love, fulfillment, synchronicity, and success than you've ever had before. So welcome to the Ascension. Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome back to the Healing Cocoon podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Danielle Karuna, and she's an incredible yoga teacher who I first met when I was living in Venice, California, and whose classes I attended at one of my most favorite studios there, Love Yoga. Shout out to my Karma Yogi days in the hood, some of my favorite days of 2018. Danielle's classes are really juicy to attend, and I always feel filled up mentally, emotionally, and physically at the end. And in this episode, you'll discover how she developed the capacity to do that, how she overcame personal adversity to reach a place of forgiveness and inner strength that emanates throughout her classes. She's such a bright light. And from her initial deep dive into Landmark, which is a program designed to achieve greater self-awareness, to her exploration of plant medicine, and finally a complete immersion into the philosophy of yoga, you'll hear how Danielle went from having a heavy focus on the physical, initially starting out as an actor and personal trainer, to finding peace and self-acceptance in the metaphysical. And not only is she a seasoned yoga teacher, but Danielle is also a yoga therapist and a meditation teacher. She teaches in yoga teacher trainings in New York and Los Angeles and offers spiritual and yoga mentorship programs. After a life-threatening event, Danielle pursued a deep path of healing and discovery that led her to the practices of yoga, meditation, and radical self-love. With over 2,000 hours of formal yoga teacher certifications and 15 years of teaching experience. She lives in LA, where she currently teaches public classes, workshops, and also teaches privately to renowned Grammy and Oscar winning artists, tech CEOs, as well as individuals with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and she even holds fertility circles for women struggling with fertility. Danielle draws on years of dedicated study to Tibetan Buddhism and yoga philosophy to find grounding in her own life and help others to do the same. So please, if you enjoy this episode, I do hope that you share it and maybe even check out one of her classes online if you're not LA based. I promise you, you will not be disappointed.
In my early 20s, I had just graduated from NYU, and I was doing an off-Broadway show, and everyone from the cast was continuing to hang out, and I left to go to my then boyfriend's house. And as I was walking to the train station, I got attacked on the street, and this guy jumped on my back and strangled me until I had a seizure, and was threatening to rape me and then stab me to death multiple times over. And so I was very traumatized. I had terrible PTSD after that, and thus began my healing journey. At the time, in addition to being an actor, I was a personal trainer. So I've always been inclined to movement as medicine, and it's just I love movement. Um, so I didn't have great insurance. I didn't make a lot of money. So somebody at the gym that I worked at was doing Landmark education. Do you know Landmark?
I do. I did their 3-day introductory course back when I was 19 or something.
Yeah. So I did Landmark and it was fine. It didn't give me the healing that I needed, but it was a start.
Did you do the whole program?
I did the whole thing because I didn't want to give up on it, even though after the forum, I really wasn't that into it. Now, many years later, after having gone deep dive into, I'm a Buddhist practitioner, I'm a yoga teacher who is heavily influenced in the way that I teach from yoga philosophy. That's really my specialty, is teaching the philosophy of these things. What I realize now is that Landmark it came from Eastern philosophies, their ideology of like living a life you love and living it powerfully. And we can choose to either hold on to stories or let go of stories, but basically like as we think, so we are. And I was so frustrated that they were telling me like, you can just let it go. Like you don't have to be traumatized. And it just felt like it was missing something. And what I realize now in hindsight, that it was missing the thousands of years of a spiritual background to back up why things could be how you say they are, why the mind is so malleable. It didn't feel like it gave me that, I don't know, it didn't give me what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, point blank. And I did, in doing that, I was able to forgive the guy that attacked me, which was big. But then my journey, I was desperate for change. As an actor, even though none of my managers or my agents ever told me I needed to change anything about my appearance, I always had underlying insecurities, which very much came to the surface after the attack. And so I went to all these plastic surgeons' offices wanting to change everything about my appearance. And there was this small little voice inside of me that was saying, well, maybe you need to change on the inside before you change everything on the outside. But I couldn't fathom what could be strong enough to help me in the way that I needed help. I was desperate for change and didn't know how it could happen. And then through grace, or through a series of events, I met a healer, and he ended up recommending plant medicine ceremonies. And so I went to my first ayahuasca ceremony, and that skyrocketed me to a different mindset, really.
Wow.
Yeah. So that I'll continue just a little bit. That like drastically changed my life. With ayahuasca, you can ask for a certain prayer or intention. You can hold a certain prayer or intention for the ceremony. And mine was, dear God, please help me understand myself so I can love myself, because I was wallowed by self-loathing. And I got it. I got what I was looking for. And with plant medicine, it reveals these simple truths that you've heard, but it happens in a way that you experience it. So I was doing really well after that. Things had drastically changed. I had drastically changed. And a few months later, I got date raped. And that like spiraled me down again. And I went back to another ceremony, and it was an incredibly deep ceremony. And it was in the second ceremony that I had this download that I needed yoga in my life. And as a personal trainer, I used to hate yoga.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I thought it was boring and I couldn't figure the breath thing out, and it just was not my cup of tea. Like if I was gonna do some kind of like movement or workout, like I wanted a workout, like I wanted the fire. But I listened to that download, and I asked a friend who was a yogi the very next day to recommend a couple yoga studios. At the time, I was living in New York, in the city, and I lived in the East Village, and a friend recommended a couple studios near where I lived. And I checked out a number of them, and something about this studio, Jivamukti Yoga School, it just felt right. And I took my first yoga class at a yoga studio and was blown away. It was everything I was looking for, but didn't even know I was looking for it. And it became this safe path for my healing to continue and a deepening of love to blossom for myself. And yeah, and that was 2005. Yeah, that was 2005. So that's kind of been for me like the path of healing ever since. And in 2008, I got certified to teach, and that's kind of been my thing, you know. And for me, so much the philosophy of the practice has healed me and continues to heal me. And you know, even as I go through major traumas and challenges, even greater than I would say the attack since then, uh, I would say my continuous practice is relying on the Dharma, relying on Buddhist and yoga philosophy to come back to
Mm,
come back to a place of
oneness.
joy or peace, and yeah, gratitude.
Wow, such an incredible story. I didn't realize you started, I've known you as such an incredible and generous and insightful yoga teacher whose classes I've
Thank
taken
you.
and loved. And I could tell that you have a great wealth and depth of knowledge and that you have been doing this for quite a long time. But I didn't realize you started out as an actor and a personal trainer, and I guess reflective of that part of you that felt like perhaps you needed to change your appearance. There is something about personal training and that we're seeking to change our exterior, our external. And I
Mm,
know people are also seeking fitness, but a lot of people are like, I'm trying to get my body into shape. Like I need to
mm.
look something other than what I currently look like. And to have traded those two physical modalities, and where yoga, I mean, people do use yoga for fitness and to reshape
Yeah.
their bodies, but it's
And
also,
and the practice I like Jivamukti is a very rigorous
it
practice.
is.
I was doing, you know, like 2 to 3 95-minute classes a day.
Wow. So, how long did it take you to get to that place of personal acceptance where you weren't sort of punishing yourself through fitness?
Well, that's interesting. I don't know that. Well, it's interesting you use those words, punishing myself through fitness, because growing up, I did have an eating disorder. I have a history of two eating disorders. One, when I was 10, I was anorexic. And then in college, I don't even know what they're calling it these days, but it was called exercise anorexia. I think it's called exercise bulimia now,
Mm-hmm.
where uh, I was working out 3 hours, 4 hours a day, counting calories. I was sitting in college biology classes, you know, learning about the human body, figuring out how many calories I had burned, you know, what I was going to eat, you know, everything was around that. And so perhaps personal training was born out of an iteration
Mm-hmm.
of me as a vocation for myself. This need to control how I looked in my body. I think maybe I was around like 22 when I really started healing from all the exercise. Um, I forgot what your question was, though.
I think I was just saying, as yoga started to take over, I guess, what the place of personal training, how long did it take, for you to be able to just do the practice to just be connected to your breath and yourself, and it wasn't being used for other purposes?
Right. I think immediately, honestly. Um, I really, once I found yoga, if you're not familiar with the Jivamukti method, which is it's the foundation of who I am as a teacher. I did their teacher training. I did their 800-hour apprenticeship. I've gone through their whole training program. It incorporates a Dharma teaching in every class. It incorporates chanting. I also love to sing. It incorporates meditation. It incorporates like really good music, and there's something called nadam yoga. It's like the yoga of sound, and the idea is that through a practice of deep external listening, the teachers don't stand in front of the room and do the practice in front of people. We walk around and help people, we adjust people, we move people's bodies. And the idea is that through not using your eyes, but really through listening and using your ears, uh, through deep external listening, you have greater access to an internal listening. Through learning to really listen to what you're hearing, that which is outside of you, it gives you greater access to hear your own truth, your own instinct, intuitions, gut, all that stuff. Um, it was just such and a strong asana practice. But the whole practice, like if I thought I was getting into yoga, I thought it was just going to be a physical thing. And I didn't realize all the more that I was going to get with it.
Mm.
Like the depth of spiritual insights and connection and food that it was going to give to me.
Yeah, the
And so
nourishment.
when I fell in love with yoga, it wasn't falling in love with the movement. It was falling in love with the entirety of the practice. And, very much in America, we see yoga as like a physical practice. There's such emphasis on yoga asana, or when you take a yoga class, like now we have like yoga boot camp and yoga sculpt and, all of these other like iterations of turning yoga into an exercise. But what I fell in love with about yoga was was the depth of the history of it, was the spiritual and philosophical backbone of where the practice truly comes from. And I have immersed myself in that study for almost 15 years, um, because that's the thing that I hang on to that keeps me, um, the eye of the storm. It's the thing that helps me when I deal with hardships and challenges and heartbreak and loss. It's the philosophy. Yeah, the movement feels good and breathing is amazing. Your breath and your experience intertwine intimately.
Mm.
And if you can learn to work with your breath, you can learn to change your experience. You can learn to relate to your experience differently. You can see it differently. So the breath is paramount as well. Um, Yeah. So so it was for you. Me, yoga isn't about like the physicality. Like as soon as I found the practice in general, it was just a love for the entirety of yoga, and it wasn't like a substitution for the gym. It made me realize there's just so much more.
I'm interrupting this awesome chat to quickly tell you all about the free meditation I've created for peace, presence, and empowerment. It kind of sounds like a big promise, but when you break it down, a sense of inner peace comes from being present because you're not feeling anxious about the past or worried about the future. You're simply with this moment here, right now. And empowerment is also a byproduct of presence because what's the one similarity you notice about the people in your life who have the confidence to ask for what they need and want, not in a pushy or narcissistic way, but in a way that feels genuine, clear, and unattached to the outcome of their ask, which ultimately then makes you more receptive to fulfilling their needs and wants. That's true empowerment. And that one similarity that all those people have in common is presence. So, this meditation is designed to give you a repeatable experience of presence so that you can begin integrating those feelings of peace and empowerment into your everyday life. I'd love for you to try it out, ideally 2 to 3 times a week for a month. I know it's a commitment, but you've got this. And let me know what starts shifting for you once you do. So pop onto our website, thehealingcocoon.co, that's C-O, not .com, and download your free audio track right now. And do you think that instantaneous connection was because you'd already been so opened up by the plant medicine that you were able to just fully embrace all of the aspects of yoga beyond just the physical?
I don't know, I think for everyone it's different. I think a lot of people can come to their first yoga class with no precursor or, uh, no preconceived ideas or insights to go there and have an incredibly transformational experience and fall in love with the practice. I don't know if I would have uh, fallen in love to the degree that I did had my path not taken the route that it did. Um, yeah, I don't know, but all I know is
It
all I know is
happened.
I'm so grateful for the practice. I love it so much, and for me, it feels like the greatest gift to be able to share it because of how it has and does shape my life in the most impactful and profound ways.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And do you mind if I track back to the beginning of your story and you said that Landmarked helped you find forgiveness for the initial attack that you experienced?
Yeah.
What does forgiveness feel like?
Oh, compassion, understanding. Uh, I remember we did a meditation, and somehow in the meditation, I was able to realize that everyone has fear. And the guy that attacked me must have been afraid for some reason, and it had some kind of need, and thought that trying to take from me or harm me could help that need. And I was just able to forgive him, and it was forgiveness came from practice of compassion. Like we're all suffering, and right, they say hurt people,
Yeah.
and usually it's the people that are the angriest and hurting the most that tend to hurt others the most. So rather than pointing the finger at them, blaming them, being angry back at them, that's just creating a negative cycle. And those are the people that need the most compassion and love.
You are so big-hearted.
Yeah.
So the how did that mindset or that open-heartedness, were you able to apply that to the second attack, or did that take you into was it almost like a test from the universe, as they
Well,
say?
that was actually somebody that I knew, so it was different. I wasn't a stranger. That was challenging in a different way. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you've had such an incredible journey. I always love when I bring someone onto the podcast and I get to hear what's brought them to where they are today, because it's
Mm.
even somebody just hearing what you spoke about compassion, and they will be able to potentially open up to that in their own hearts now, and with things that have happened to them, things that they may have felt like they're stuck and could never get over, and that will define their lives forever, because sometimes a trauma like that can be the place from where you live your life going forward.
Yeah, I feel I can talk about that so openly at this point, and actually with joy because it brought me to where I am today. And had I not experienced that, I don't know if I would have been in a position that felt desperate enough to make the drastic changes that I made after that. That was the beginning of this whole healing journey for me. And I'm so thankful for it because I'm so grateful for where I am right now. Yeah. In terms of like my life, and
Yeah.
now I deal with other challenges, but just in terms of like the trajectory of my path, I'm grateful for it very much so.
That was the moment that set you forward.
Mm.
Plant medicine, I haven't had anyone on the podcast who's talked about that yet. So, when you first did it, did you do a series? Did you sit in a series of what are they? They call them sits, don't they? Is that the term?
Oh, like ceremonies?
Ceremonies. Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
do a series or was it just one initial one?
Just one initial one in Brooklyn at a healing center. They brought a shaman in from Peru.
Oh, wow. So you got to have the real.
Oftentimes, shamans will come and do a weekend of ceremonies. But I haven't done that. I have gone to the jungle a number of times, though, to do what's called a dieta or a spiritual cleansing.
Okay.
And you work with different plants beyond just like psychedelic ones, and it's a whole way to clear uh, fear and trauma and illness, all kinds of things. I actually just went to the jungle in June, July this year, and I hadn't. As of late, I'll share with you. I've been on a very long fertility journey,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and so the intention of that was to work on some womb stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In my fertility journey, I've also been avoiding plant medicine.
Ah,
So
okay.
I haven't touched it in it had been maybe like 8 or 9 years.
Wow. And so you got to a point where you thought, well, maybe actually the very thing that I'm steering away from right now could be something that would bring me forward in this journey.
Yes, yes, I had a realization that the trauma that I've experienced after 8 years on a fertility journey far surpasses like a one-time event of getting attacked. So why wouldn't I do the one thing that I know has really helped to move trauma out significantly?
And the process, the how, what is the how of how it moves the trauma out? Is it that the plant medicine expands your mind beyond your limiting beliefs, and so suddenly you just have a new perspective, and it's the new perspective that heals you then on a cellular level, or how does it work?
I don't really know the how of how it works, but as I was saying before, oftentimes it happens that you experience these truths that that happens in a way such that you experience it versus somebody telling it to you. You know, I could tell you you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, but if you don't believe it, you won't hear it, you won't know it, no matter what anybody else sees in you or tells you. And for this, it's like you get these insights of truth in a way that you experience it. I don't know how to,
Mm.
it's like simple truths are revealed, not as though somebody's like dictating it to you, but as like something you deeply know yourself. And so like with that, for me, I have lost hope for the last number of years, and going to the jungle made me realize it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when our kids join us.
I find plant medicine so interesting, and it's something that I haven't tried myself, and it's probably pretty much just the one thing that I haven't thrown myself into in terms of my own healing journey, and I'm not really sure why. And I'm just so curious, and there is part of me that's, I guess, I'm like, wow, but what if I shoot off into the stratosphere and I never come back? you know?
Yeah, it's incredibly scary. It's not to be taken lightly. Like, I know people that really enjoy psychedelics and they love astral travel and going to the different dimensions, and that's not me. I have only always gone for healing. I'm quite terrified, in fact. It's nothing to be taken lightly. It's terrifying, but also like can be incredibly transformational.
Yeah, and so the experience that you have, so for example, you've gone in for a healing aspect, and other people you're
Mhm.
saying go in for that full psychedelic flying off through the universe. So you can
I think most
could you,
people go in for some element of healing, but I think not everybody has the fear that I have. A lot of
ah,
people are really just open to whatever is shown to them.
right.
For me, it feels like, like I say, like these deep truths are experienced.
Hmm.
Um, I heard once that plant medicine is like, it's like you get the insights you would get after sitting for meditation in 50,000 hours. Uh,
Right.
so it's, and so when I say that um, these truths are revealed, it's almost like you're getting to like pull back the veil and you see behind the curtain.
Mm.
And that can oftentimes be quite a comfort, right? Because not to get too corny about it, but if you do believe that, we're all held in love, and what if we believed that we were being supported in all that we are and everything that we do. Oftentimes we can tend to think that the world is out to get us. But what if the world was for us? What if the guy that attacked me wasn't like some bad guy, but what if he was an angel who was really there to put me on the path that I'm on now? And it's way more powerful to see your world through that lens than thinking that everything is bad and out to get you and everything's going to fall apart. Um, and so, oftentimes, when you are able to see behind the curtain or beyond the veil, you come to that realization that, oh, I am loved. I am love.
Mm.
And, like, and yeah, we're all so like divinely held.
Yeah.
And when life beats us up and throws us down and spits us out, it's hard to remember that. Um, but it's nice to have different means to come back to that.
Mm. Yeah. And so your daily practice is something, your yoga practice, is that, can you share with us a little bit of what your daily routine looks like? If you have one, I mean, sometimes they're often changing, aren't they? Whether it's meditation or
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my daily practice is it's a lived practice at this point. Like I
mm,
really feel like life is my practice. I do sit and do a little meditation and mantras. I'm not a morning person. I do everything at night. Um, but I really try to make life my living meditation and try to walk through every day and experience with as much presence as possible.
mm,
I do practice asana, which has changed a lot. I used to put myself in these crazy poses, and I have a lot of injuries from pushing the boundaries of my body. Um, and I'm also a yoga therapist now, and I'm older as well. I'm far more into a sustainable practice. So I really think practice should be a good balance of flexibility and strength, and not just like becoming Gumby and putting a leg behind the head, or an
mm.
acrobat and like walking around on your hands. That's great for people that can do that. For me, that's not at all my goal of the practice. I just like to move my body to connect to my breath and to stay strong. Um, yeah, and limber, and as I get older, to make sure I'm not going to injure myself. So it's just a sustainable practice at this point, which feels far healthier than what I was doing in my early 20s.
Yeah,
But
because everybody's body shape is different. And I used to try a lot to get myself, I thought, oh, well, I was a dancer. I should be able to do all these crazy poses. And I would push myself into these poses. And after a while, I went, you know what? My back doesn't bend that way. There's
yeah,
no point. When I would really investigate these photos I would see on Instagram or whatever I was looking at, I'd be like, but look at the way her back bends. That's a naturally occurring bend in her back. That I
it's
don't have
love.
that. I'm not
I
going to
don't
be
have
able to
that
do
either.
that. And I had to, like, yoga can be quite humbling in many ways as well. And it brings about an acceptance, which
Very
potentially,
much. Which is also when I teach, I don't just demonstrate and show, because I don't want people looking at me and comparing themselves to me. I want them to feel into themselves and their body and their breath. And it's such a different experience when it's brought inward versus if like you have everything, all of your senses moving outward. Uh, yeah.
yeah. So where can people find you? Are you online? I know you're teaching in studios around LA.
Yes, I teach. I do teach online. I offer mentorship programs, and it's not just my last group. We had yoga teachers and non-yoga teachers as well, and the feedback I just got was that it was more like a life mentorship than a yoga mentorship. It's
Beautiful.
very, very heavy on the philosophies that has shaped my mind and how I handle the challenges that I
Mm.
endure, but like that we all, it's like we all, I used to think my job as a teacher was to make people happy. Like I had all these tools to, help people connect to the joy in their life. And that's great. But as I've gotten older and experienced a lot more hardship, I realized my job is actually to help people embrace their wholeness.
Mm.
And like for me, I live with grief. I've learned to integrate hardship and challenges and loss, and that's what life is. It's not all, it's like with your roses, you're going to get some thorns. You can't just have the roses. And so very much my philosophy is helping people integrate and allow for their wholeness. So I do mentorships.
How long are the mentorships and what do they involve?
Yeah, the last one was 5 months, and it was meeting once a week. And we went through a lot of the different yogic texts. We were going through the Bhagavad Gita and the Yoga Sutras, and then making it alive. There are these ancient texts, and people don't necessarily how to utilize that wisdom in their daily lives. And there's so much wisdom that we can access and that we can grow from and learn through. And so we have been going through a lot of those texts and unpacking them to make it applicable. That was this group, this cohort, the bulk of it. We did do a little bit of subtle body stuff. We would do meditations every time we would come together that they can then take into the week with them and integrate and utilize. So yes, I do mentorships. I teach for a Buddhist community called the Three Jewels out of New York. I teach virtually for them. 2 days a week, I teach at a studio in Venice, in Los Angeles, called Love Yoga, and I have a newsletter that I put out. And as of the last number of years, I was doing free fertility circles for women, going through fertility journeys. And so a lot of my days during the week also include having a lot of one-on-one calls with women going through fertility journeys. I've found that just because of what I've been through and the wisdom that I do hold, I know I can help women in that way, and I realize it's part of my purpose to do so. So I really do enjoy connecting with women on that spectrum as well.
I hope this episode has inspired you to keep going on what can sometimes be a tough road to inner peace and true happiness. If you want to dive deeper into what we talked about today, go to thehealingcocoon.co for show notes and all things personal growth. And don't forget, if you're loving The Healing Cocoon, then put that love into action and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. And until next time, my friends, let's rise and shine together.